a wild and controversial weekend at Talladega leads to insane racing and a changed playoff grid. Talladega always is just there as the wild card. You never know what's going to happen, and especially with this type of package that they have now at Daytona and Talladega, where the closing speeds and the closing rate is so huge and so fast. You never know what's going to happen. And at Talladega, it proved that way for sure. We're going to first talk about the Cup race because that's obviously the most important part of the weekend. But also, the truck race had some things that I want to talk about as well, including the winner. So the Cup race started on Sunday, normal time. They moved it up a little bit to try and get ahead of the rain. They got the whole of stage one in, and then the rains came down. But from what I saw in stage number one, there was good racing. They got single file for a little bit there. Obviously, maybe try to settle it out, but with this package, once again, you can't really settle it out. You always have to kind of race with this package. They got too wide. They got 3x3 at one point for the lead, and at one point, I think there were like three Chevrolets lined up 3 wide for the lead. I think it was like Byron Lee in the top and Kurt Busch in the middle, and down low was Chase Elliott. Ending up winning stage number one was William Byron. Logano tried to challenge him, but Bowman gave Byron enough of a push to get back clear, and William won stage number one. The rains came. It rained. There was never an opening. NASCAR to call the race there, and they had to postpone it to the next day, Monday, at, once again, I think it was 2 p.m. Eastern time. I kind of want to talk about Sunday and how I really do miss 1 p.m. start times. If we had 1 p.m. start time, that race would have definitely gone past stage number two, and maybe it would have been called early, which obviously maybe wouldn't have been the best, but for people there, they at least everyone would have seen a complete race. So I kind of miss 1 p.m. start times because, we used to have that. It used to be the norm. You'd have coverage come out at noon, and then you'd have the race start around 1 p.m. I kind of miss that because it kind of brings up times like now where if you go to a race and it starts to rain, you're going to have to push it to the next day. You don't really have an opening where, hey, we'll get there at 1, and if it's raining at 1, that's fine, and if it starts to rain at 3, we've gotten ahead of it. So that's why I really miss 1 p.m. start times. I feel like 2 and 2:30, that's just a weird time to start it. I don't know, like, especially now when NFL has started, you kind of put it on in the middle of a game that's already starting. You need to start the race when NFL starts so that you can try and rope those people in and keep them watching the race instead of being like, oh, I'm watching NFL, let me switch to the race, see how it's going, then we'll switch back to the NFL because I'm already invested in this game. I'll turn on the race once this game's over. So I don't know why they do some network thing where they're like, oh, we like 2 p.m. or 2:30 start times, but I don't like them. I feel like 1 p.m. works better. But the race got postponed to Monday afternoon, which for a lot of people, especially if you were in school, depending on where you were, it was Columbus Day, so you have that day off. I was not as fortunate. I was at college, so I had classes. I had a class at 2, so I didn't get to see that, and then I had a class immediately after that one, so I didn't get to see anything. Luckily, I got out of that last class early, and as I was walking back to my car to come home and just kind of I was like, oh, let me see if it's over. Let me see who won. Let me see if they're still going. If they're still going, there's probably like 10 laps left. So walking out, pulled up on my phone because I have YouTube TV, and the YouTube TV app is this is not an ad, by the way, not an ad. The YouTube TV app, obviously works very well. Walking through college campus, have 4G, whatever. You have internet there as well. So I'm walking through college campus, pull up the YouTube TV app, and it's like, hey, here's the race. I was like, cool. So I click on the race, and I'm watching it, and, I think it's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was out front, and William Byron and Joey Logano were side by side for a second. And I kid you not, I was walking through the halls of the building, ready to get out, and I jumped when they were on board Logano, and he just turned around and suddenly I was like, what happened? Because I was like kind of watching it, but not really watching it. And then that happened. I was like, whoa. So that was the second big crash. The first big crash was Bowman blocking Logano. I don't know when that was during the race. I haven't seen the race. The only things I saw about were, of course, stage 1, the finish, and the three big wrecks that happened. So yeah, that happened. Bowman blocked Logano. I think it was in stage 2. The last stage, Logano, I think Byron tried to get a push from Kurt Busch, and the Chevy noses don't line up, and it turned Byron to the right into Logano, and then Logano kind of spun to the pack. Joey, I think, still got like an 11th place finish. That wasn't bad for him, especially with how his car looked. Like it was, as MRN put it, because then I walked back to my car. There's obviously starting to the yell from that crash, and so if this were my normal car, I would have turned on the race on the YouTube TV app, put the volume up and then threw my phone into the passenger seat and said, okay, there we go. I can listen to the NBC announcers now. However, my normal car isn't here. It is totaled. I was in a crash Thursday, so now I am on a loaner car. We got a rental car, which was a 2019, which had Sirius XM. So here I am now. Turn on Sirius XM NASCAR radio. So that was very beneficial. That all happened. Turn on Sirius XM radio, and you can listen to MRN calling the race. So this is my first time listening to MRN call a race since I probably think the 2011 Kentucky race. Not listened to MRN call a race since then, and let me tell you, they do a very good job. The way they described Logano's car on pit road accurately described it, and they put into my mind what it was. I think it was, I forget who it was that said it, but they said that Logano's car coming towards them looked like a baked potato, like it was wrapped in aluminum, and it literally looked like that. Once I saw it, I was like, wow, they actually did a really good job. But so I listened to MRN for the rest of the race until the finish. So driving home, they're under yellow. They go back green, and then, they kind of race on. It's Stenhouse and Kurt Busch, whatever. Suarez spins. I think the yellow comes out for that for some reason. They do the restart again, and it's like Kurt Busch, Stenhouse, Reagan was up there. And then Kyle Busch started forward. Kevin Harvick tried to come forward, Brad Keselowski. And then Brendan Gaughan was up there. I was like, oh, my God, Brendan Gaughan can try and effing win at Talladega. Are you serious? And I'm like jumping up and down in the driver's seat, trying not to crash the car again. And just kind of excited about what's happening. They go, the MRN announcers are yelling like 3x3 at the front. Kyle Busch clears, and then they're talking about, Kyle Busch goes up to block Kurt Busch. He's coming back down. Stenhouse is down there, and then all of a sudden, I think it was Mike Bagley was actually calling the crash when it happened. He said something to the extent of he goes up to block Kurt Busch, comes down, Stenhouse is there, Kyle Busch up to Brad Keselowski, Brendan Gaughan's upside down. I was like, oh my God, someone flipped. Like, I was like, oh my God, how'd they flip? And honestly, what I was expecting it to look like, it didn't look like at all. Physics took the day off to watch the race, apparently, because that did not make any sense how that happened. And oh my God, if it wasn't the craziest and maybe the scariest flip I have seen when I watched it, because I was like, oh my God, you flip going into a corner. That is so, like, crazy to do. Cars are driving underneath you. And I think Michael McDowell was leading the race, and he was like 8th or 9th when the crash started. So, like, everyone in front of him crashed. It was absolutely insane what happened. So obviously they called the red flag for that, which gave me actually enough time to come home and turn the race on the TV and watch the finish of the race. And my God, was it a crazy race. 2-lap shootout. Ryan Blaney gets ahead, and the Fords kind of go single file. But then Ryan Newman on the backstretch off turn 2 says, I want to win this race. He and Hamlin get hooked up, basically tandeming each other up towards the front, bumping, pushing. Newman gets way out in front with Denny Hamlin right behind him. Then Hamlin gets into him too hard. Newman gets very loose in 3 and 4. Hamlin has to back off because that gives Blaney a huge run. Newman's all out there by himself. They wreck behind. Blaney fakes high, then goes back down low. And for Ryan Newman would have won this race, in my opinion, if he just held the double yellow line. But he left like half a lane there, and Blaney had enough room to just squeeze his nose in there. They make contact. Blaney saves his car down onto the apron double yellow line. To the checker flag, Ryan, Blaney, Newman are beating and banging, rubbing off each other, and who else but Ryan Blaney, the driver who came in, I think, 22 points below the cut line, wins at Talladega to advance to the round of 8 by 7 thousandths of a second. 7 thousandths of a second was the margin of victory. Absolutely insane finish at Talladega. I think they said it was, the 7th closest margin of victory, 6th or 7th. It's up inside the top 10 closest margin of victory. So that was absolutely insane, absolutely cool to see. That kind of breaks up the trend of, like, the finishes of these last few races have been pretty dull, to say the least. We haven't really had an exciting finish the last few races. The last time we had an exciting finish was probably New Hampshire. So it was cool to see, we had a great finish here at Talladega. I think we had like 46 or 47 lead changes, so that was crazy. We saw 3-wide racing. We saw double file racing. Just craziness, insanity. That was Talladega for sure. It had everything. It had a flip. It had 3-wide racing. It had crashes. It had a photo finish. I mean, it basically had everything Talladega is normally known for. So I think mission accomplished out of that Talladega weekend, if I do say so myself. But 7 thousandths of a second, right? Saved Ryan Blaney's season. You look at it, right? if he was 0.008 of a second slower, right, and Ryan Newman won the race, the playoffs would look so different. I think if Blaney doesn't win, Bowman is up in by 4, Blaney is out by 4, Chase is out by 5, and Byron is out by like 9 or something. So like it's very close if Blaney doesn't win that race. And now I think the cutoff is Logano's 18 ahead of Bowman and like 22 ahead of Chase and like 25 ahead of Byron or something like that. Like that, it's a pretty good ways. So the cutoff is kind of clear at this point, but Kansas is next, and Kansas has also turned into a pack type race. And we saw earlier in the season, the Hendrick cars had very good pace. Chase Elliott ran up inside the top 5 pretty much all race. Alex Bowman got second. Chicagoland is basically Kansas's sister racetrack. Hendrick ran well there, and Bowman won. So literally anything can happen. Alex Bowman go out and win Kansas and knock Joey Logano or Brad Keselowski down below the cutoff, because Logano and Keselowski are also then separated by only a few points. So then, if Logano finishes ahead of Keselowski could get knocked out, which is crazy to think about. Looking at, after Talladega, if you look at the hypothetical full season point standings, like if there was no playoff, right? If you go on Racing Reference and look at this race, down at the bottom it goes, if there's no playoff, these are what the points look like. Absolutely insane how close everyone is in points. Joey Logano would be the points leader. Kevin Harvick would be 2 points behind in second. Third place would be Kyle Busch. He's like 11 points back. And then Truex and Hamlin are like 30-some points and 42 points back or something like that. So the top 5 are within a race of each other after Talladega in full season points. And we need a playoff NASCAR. That's like another story for another day. But to think that after this round, right, if Joey Logano, say Logano gets like 10th at Kansas but doesn't score any stage points, and say Keselowski gets like 9th but scores stage points, and then let's say Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman wins the race. Bowman and Elliott, if one of them wins, they could bump up ahead of Joey Logano, and Keselowski would stay ahead of Joey Logano, which means that Joey Logano, who's leading the points right now full season, would miss the round of 8. That is the playoff format we have right now. In fact, we have Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney guaranteed into the next round, the round of 8. If they weren't guaranteed, the points would look so much closer. I think Larson would be 7th in points, and Blaney would be, I think, 10th in points, because they've had bad days after, obviously Blaney had a horrible Dover, and Larson wrecked in the Talladega race. So, I mean, it's just, my God. It is interesting, the playoff format we have for sure. Like, the win urine obviously is to create drama into that final race, because then any one of the, playoff drivers left can still get in no matter what. But I mean, like, it's kind of just like bogus, I could go out and run 30th at Dover and 35th at Kansas, but if I win Talladega, I'm in. So it is kind of bogus, but it is the entertainment NASCAR wants to see, and what we saw at Talladega was entertainment. As far as the race goes and how I would rate it, it was a crazy race. Once again, the thing I like about Super Speedway racing is not the crashes, but the intense racing that we have. And this package reminds me a lot of the early 2000s package that we had at Talladega with, like, kind of the wicker bill on the roof. Remember, like, 2000 and 2001 when they had that stuff, and you get huge runs and get crazy massive runs and start moving out, whatever, right? It reminds me of that a little bit, except the drivers got worse, I think. So here's the weird thing, is that, like, I don't really like it as much as what I've seen from the early 2000s. You kind of like look at it now, and it's like they're going to wreck at least 2 or 3 times big in a race. Like, they're going to have at least 2 or 3 big ones in a race, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast at this point. Like, I don't know if it's the drivers or if it's the stages or if it's the cars, but they crash so much more than they did. And I don't like seeing a lot. I would rather watch 28 cars have a shot at the win on the last lap, and then 15 of them wipe themselves out in the big one on the last lap, then have 2 big ones throughout the race take out 15 cars each, and then we're left with 5 clean race cars and 7 race cars that have some sort of damage but can still kind of keep up in the pack. I'd rather see like 25 drivers have a shot at the end in the lead group, and like maybe someone blocks wrong and it takes out a lot of the cars, and the guy in 17th wins or something. But now, like, we're finishing with like 15 cars running. It's kind of absurd. So I wish they wouldn't crash as much. In my opinion, it was a very good race. For what I saw, at least. I'm gonna go back and watch it in a little bit. From what I saw when they were racing, it was good. I think they crashed too much. That's Talladega, obviously. There's going to be crashes. You're never not going to have a big one. Or if you don't have a big one at Talladega, then the drivers did a really good job. Or maybe they were too cautious. But so I just think that they crashed too much. I feel like they're like, calm it down a little bit. You guys don't have to go full bore every single lap. Just kind of calm it down. But yeah, good race. Probably, if it's not the best super speedway race of the season, it's definitely right behind the first Talladega race of the season. So that's kind of how it goes. But one final thing I want to talk about is the Truck Series race. In particular, the end of the race. The rest of the race kind of had nothing to it. But the end of the race was insane, wild, unpredictable. So, coming down into the tri-oval, Johnny Sauter is leading the way. And was it Christian Eckes in the 51, I think, right? Someone was in the 51. I forget who it was already. I think it was Eckes. He had a run to Sauter, went down under him. Sauter blocked him below the WL line. 51 let off to not spin Sauter, put the 51 back behind. Here comes Spencer Boyd with a huge run the outside of the 20 truck. That gets blocked off to the checkered flag, and Johnny Sauter wins the race. Spencer Boyd second, Todd Gillen third, Christian Eckes in fourth. But wait, there's more. After the race, NASCAR deems that Johnny Sauter is penalized for forcing a competitor below the double yellow line. And it gives the win to Spencer Boyd. Spencer Boyd won a truck race at Talladega. Insanity. It was all because of Johnny Sauter doing a bogus block. And NASCAR got the call right. Johnny Sauter did force Eckes below the WL line, and it kept Eckes from advancing his position. Eckes had to back off as to not wreck Sauter, and it allowed Sauter to get back clear and block and win the race. It broke Eckes' momentum. He had to let off, and it kept Johnny Sauter out in front. That was a bad block. If Sauter leaves Eckes the lane, Eckes gets to the inside, they drag race back to the line. Instead, that doesn't happen, and it gives Spencer Boyd, the race victory at Talladega. Some people aren't happy with this, dating back to say, hey, look at Regan Smith here in 2008. He didn't get a bypass because Stewart forced him below. It is very hard to compare a 2019 decision to a 2008 decision. This rule has definitely evolved, and as of late, the last few years, NASCAR has been more accepting of what happens if you're forced below the WL line. For example, they let Blaney go. He had his left tires below the WL line at the end of that race, but they said he was trying to control his car, save his car. Obviously, Newman put him down there as well, so that was fine. He was forced below the WL line. No penalties are awarded. So I feel like NASCAR as of late has definitely gotten it better. It has always been a clause in the rule. Every single driver's meeting, I don't know if they changed it after 2008 or what, but they have said always in every single driver's meeting, they say race above the WL line. You may not advance your position below the WL line. If you do, you will be black flagged. And then they say, if in an attempt to keep a driver behind you, you force them below the WL line, you may be black flagged. That's always been a clause on the end of the whole, double yellow line rule, Daytona and Talladega. They say it every single driver's meeting. They go, you may be black flagged if you force a guy below the double yellow line. They never really use that rule. I mean, always whenever someone went below the WL line, whether there was a car to their outside and they had to turn them to keep from going below, or what be it, they've always called it on the driver who's gone below the WL line. They always penalize that guy. I think the first time that they didn't do that was last year's Fall Talladega race. I think it was Paul Menard and Jamie McMurray. I forget who it was that forced the other below, but one of them got forced below the WL line, and the one who did the forcing got penalized, and the one who didn't did not. So that's kind of, I'm glad NASCAR has taken that approach to it now, because that's always been a part of the rule that's been ignored. They've always said in every driver's meeting, but they've never enforced it until the last year. They've enforced it, and I feel like that's better that they enforce it now, because, if they enforced it back in 2008, Regan Smith wins at Talladega, and Darlington is his second victory, and Tony Stewart still has never won at Talladega if that happens. So, I think it's, I think the addition of that part of the rule is definitely better, for sure. And I think they made the right call in penalizing Johnny Sauter, giving Spencer Boyd the victory. But I think that's it. I think that's all I have to talk about for Talladega. Kansas is the cutoff for the round of 8. We are definitely going to see an upset driver get eliminated, whether it be Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, or Brad Keselowski. One of those three is definitely going to be an upset that's eliminated. Obviously, right now, 3 of them below the cutoff don't really belong in the round of 8: Boyer, Byron, and Bowman. So if those 3 get eliminated, it's not really like, oh my god, they got eliminated. No, they kind of deserve it because they've run decent enough to make it into the round of 12. They definitely are round of 12 drivers, but they aren't round of 8 drivers for sure. And I think, if everything went right, then Chase would take the spot of Blaney, because I think Blaney's like 9th in points. I think if literally Blaney did not win and Chase was in, then I think the round of 8 drivers would be the drivers inside the top 8 points. But right now, Homestead is definitely looking like 3 JGR cars. They have definitely run very well. All of them have had, they have the playoff points and all that stuff. So watch for JGR in the final 3, and don't count out Kyle Larson. He's kind of come alive as of late, and Kevin Harvick as well, still strong. Joey Logano and Keselowski starting to pick it back up. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. That is it. Crazy Talladega race. We'll see how Kansas goes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.